All right, so I'm back doing another one of these. This is test 9, so we're gonna do module 1. As I go through this, again, I'm gonna use the calculator pretty much every time, or Desmos. Again, it's up to you if you want to use it as much as I'm going to. But just can, again, show you guys how the calculator and Desmos can be used in certain situations. Again, it's up to you if you actually want to use it as much as I'm going to. All right, that's number 1. It says the lengths of two sides of a triangle are 4 centimeters and 6 centimeters. If the perimeter of the triangle is 18 centimeters, what is the length in centimeters of the third side of this triangle? So perimeter, we're just adding up all the sides. So we'll say plus x equals 18. Again, we'll pull up our calculator. So we can just use solve, menu 3, 1. So 4 plus 6 plus x equals 18, comma, x. Enter. We get x. It's 8. All right. Number 2. It says, which equation has the same solution as the given equation? So what we can do is find the solution for each, the given equation and each answer, and just see which one gives us the same solution, excuse me. Again, if we're trying to find the solution, our calculator is really good at doing that. So again, we're doing the given equation. So menu 3, 1. 16x plus 30 equals 190, comma x. Enter. So I'm just going to write down x equals 10 because now I know I'm going to keep doing every answer choice until I also get x equals 10. So I'm going to do menu 3, 1, and choice A. So 16x equals 30, comma x. Not the same solution. So let's try answer choice B. Menu 3, 1. 16x equals 130, comma x. Okay, and if I wanted to, I can go up and highlight and hit enter, and it'll copy. So that way I don't have to completely retype it, because I know I can just be like, okay, I'm not putting 130 for answer choice C, I'm putting 160. Enter. I get the x equals 10, so the answer is C. Obviously, for this question, you could do this by hand. Maybe it'll be quicker. But again, the calculator can help us find the solutions as long as we have the equation. We can just guess and check. All right, number 3. Ty set a goal to walk at least 24 kilometers every day to prepare for a multi-day hike. On a certain day, Ty plans to walk at an average speed of 4 kilometers per hour. What is the minimum number of hours Ty must walk on that day to fulfill the daily goal? So we could think of this as multiple different ways. I'm just going to go ahead and think of this as speed. So speed is equal to distance divided by time. So we know the speed should be 4 kilometers per hour. And that should equal the distance, which we know is 24 kilometers, divided by the number of hours. Well, that's what they want to know, how much. So we'll call that x hours. And so I just wrote the units so we could see it, but you could actually just now ignore the units. And we can now solve this equation we just made. So I can go menu 3, 1, control divide. So it's 4 over 1. So I didn't write the 1, but I could. Equals, control divide, 24 over x, comma x. And we get x equals 6. The answer is B. All right, number 4. The function g is defined by g of x is equal to x squared plus 9, for which value of x is g of x equal to 25. So they're wanting to know what x is, and I'm saying it this way because the mistake is we actually make 25 be plugged in for x, but they're saying that g of x should be the 25. So wherever we see g of x, we're going to replace this g of x right here with 25. So I'm going to think of this question as 25 equals x squared plus 9, because we don't know what x, that's what the question's asking. Well, we just made an equation. So now I can pull up our calculator, solve for x. So mini 3, 1. So 25 equals x squared plus 9, comma x. And we get 4 or negative 4, and only 4 shows up. Okay. So number 5, which expression is equivalent to 9x squared plus 5x? So remember, if they ever say which expression is equivalent to, that is a big tell that we can just pick our own numbers for x and then plug into our calculator and just guess and check. Just calculating, so not using anything special. So I usually tell people go ahead and start with 3. So we're just going to make x3. So wherever we see 3 in the given expression, we're going to go into our calculator and we are going to replace x with 3. So it's going to be 9 times 3 squared plus 5 times 3. So wherever I saw x, I'm just going to replace it with 3. So we get 96. We're going to go to each answer choice and replace x with 3 until we also get 96. Again, we're going to write down 96 because that's way we can be like, okay, what am I trying to get? So I'm going to do 3 parentheses 9 times 3 plus 5, not minus 5, plus 5. Enter. So we get 96. The answer is A. So sometimes this actually works out and we don't have to guess and check that much. All right, number 6. Each value in the data set shown represents the height in centimeters of a plant. What is the mean height in centimeters of these plants? So again, a lot of the times if they're asking for mean, median, or standard deviation, Desmos is a great way to do it. So you can hit the little functions button, and then we're doing means. We're going to go down until we get to mean, and then we're just going to write the numbers. So 6, comma 10, comma 13, comma 2, comma 15, comma 22, comma 10, comma 4, comma 4, comma 4, and we get a mean of 9. And this is a write-in question, so we're just going to write down 9. All right. Number 7. A student council group is selling posters for a fundraiser. They use the function p of x is equal to 5x minus 220 to determine their profit p of x in dollars for selling x school posters. In order to earn a profit of 900, how many school posters must they sell? So we know that the profit is 900, and they're asking how many posters. So x is the number of posters. So they're basically asking, what does x equal? Well, we know that the profit, our p of x, is equal to 900. So wherever we see p of x, we can replace that with 900. So we can say that 900 should equal 5x minus 220. And they want to know what x is, so now we just made an equation so we can solve for x. So menu 3, 1, 900 equals 5x minus 220, comma x. We get x equals 224. All right. So number 8. Jay walks at a speed of 3 miles per hour and runs at a speed of 5 miles per hour. He walks for W hours and runs for R hours. That should say hours. There's a typo in this. For a total of 14 hours. So they're missing that part as well. So which equation represents this? Or excuse me, for a total of 112 miles is what this question should be saying. So this question has a typo in it. If this ever happens on the test, they just won't count the question. So I just know that this should say for, I'll complete it. It says runs for R hours. And then a total of 112 miles. That's what the question's actually saying. So they want to know which equation represents this scenario. So if we walk at 3 miles per hour, we'd want to multiply that by however many hours that we are going to walk. Well, they told us that J is going to walk for W hours. So we do 3 times W. So that's that 3W is how many miles J in total walks for however many hours he decides to walk. And then J runs at 5 miles per hour. So 5 miles per hour times however many hours he's going to run, which they said was R. And then a total of 112 miles. So total usually means we want to add up all of our miles. So we're going to add these 2 miles. And the total should be 112. So the answer here is D. All right, number 9. John paid a total of $165 for a microscope by making a down payment of $37 plus P monthly payments of $16 each. Which of the following equations represents the situation? Well, just like with J running or walking, the rate is $16 each month. So however many months we're going to pay $16, we would just do 16 times that many months. Well, they told us that John, is going to be paying P monthly payments. So P times he's going to pay $16. So we're going to do 16 times P. And then also, so that's how much John is paying, but also John has to make a down payment. So that's another amount he's paying. So he's also going to pay $37. So in total, how much money is he paying? So total means we probably want to add these. And in total, John is going to pay $165. And so here, that's the answer choice. That's number 10. The given equation relates to the positive numbers p, x, and y. Which equation correctly expresses y in terms of p? So whenever you see the phrase in terms of, whatever comes before it is what we are going to get by itself. If you're ever just trying to get one letter by itself, usually our calculator can do that. So we're going to pull up our calculator, and we're going to get that one letter by itself, so we're going to solve for y. So we're going to do menu 3, 1, y minus 57 equals, and we're going to do p times x, because when you have a letter next to a letter, you have to put the times sign. And we're going to do comma y, because they want to get y by itself, so we're going to solve for y. So y equals p times x plus 57. So the answer is B. Okay. Number 11. A company opens an account with an initial balance of $36,100. The account earns interest and no additional deposits or withdrawals are made. The account balance is given by an exponential function, A, where A of t is the account balance in dollars, t years after the account is opened. The account balance after 13 years is $68,071.93. Which equation could define A? So there are a few ways that we could do this question. I'm going to try to think about this one in probably the quickest way. So if you're ever dealing with an exponentially increasing function, because they did say it's an exponential function, the initial value will usually be the number in the very front of the expression. So they initially had an account balance of $36,100. So that $36,100 should be in the front. So we can cross out B and C because the number in the front we want to be the initial. And then we can see that after time goes on, our number gets bigger because they said after 13 years, we should get $68,071.93. So if we have an exponentially increasing function, the number inside our parentheses, so here it's either the 1.5 or the 0.5, has to be greater than 1. Because in order for the number to get bigger, when we keep multiplying, The only time we multiply and numbers get bigger is if the number is bigger than 1. If the number is less than 1, we're going to get smaller. So I can see here that as time goes on, my number should get bigger, so I should be multiplying by a bigger and bigger amount. So I know that the answer should be A. Now, there is another way that we could do this problem that I will actually talk about, which is they gave us a point. They said that when t equals 13, our A of t should equal $68,071.93. So what we could do is we could go into Desmos and we could plot the point. So to put a point, I always like making a table. So we could say, hey, we're going to do 13, 68071.93. Now, what's the annoying thing with this? That's a very big number. So in Desmos, we're going to have to go until we have a very big number. So we could just keep on zooming out, or we could even go to the window. And I'm even going to make the y-axis, go all the way up to, we'll just do 68,075. 68,075. And we'll put the lower part of that axis, so that way it's not a huge axis, at 68,070. Positive 68,070. And we may have to change the x-axis. The x-axis we'll just do from 10 to we'll do from positive 10 to 14. Why am I doing that? Well, because I know that the number we're talking about is x should be 13 and y should be 68,071. So we should be able to see in that window. So now I'm not going to zoom in or zoom out, so you can see, we can see the dot. So we are just going to graph all the equations until it passes through that dot. So we're going to start with answer choice A, and I'm going to type it exactly how it's written. So I'm going to do A of t equals 36100, and I'll even put dot 00, parentheses 1.05 to the power t. And what do you know? It passes right through our point, so our answer is A. This method is really good because you can do this with any sort of equation. You could get away with not even knowing the initial value in the front. So if they ever give you a point and they're saying, what's the equation? You can oftentimes just plot the point or points. Very often they may be, you maybe have more than one point, and then just guess and check all the answers using Desmos. Again, you just have to manipulate the windows with these sometimes depending on the numbers. Thankfully, the numbers don't get too crazy like this, but using Desmos to just guess and check is a very smart way to do it. You could also guess and check by using your calculator. You could plug in 13 to every answer for t and just see if you get 68,071.93. So it's the same thing as Desmos. It's just you're actually calculating it rather than visually seeing that passes through the point. Okay, so moving on. And again, on the SAT, almost every question has multiple ways you could do it. It could be something with the calculator. It could be something with Desmos. It could just be doing it by hand. It's whatever way you see it makes the most sense for you. All right, 12. The circle shown has center O, circumference 144 pi, and diameters PR and QS. The length of arc PS is twice the length of arc PQ. What is the length of arc QR? So if PS is twice the length of PQ, I'm going to call PQ X, and then twice the length would just be 2X. And then actually the SR will be the same arc length as PQ, because those are called vertical angles or vertical arcs here, I guess. And then RQ will also be 2X. And they're actually asking for QR. So they want to know what 2X is. Well, I just measured the entire length of that circle, which we call the circumference. So when I add up all those sides, so 2X plus X plus 2X plus X, that should equal the circumference, which they told us was 144 pi. So what I can do now is solve for x and then just multiply that number by 2. So again, I can pull up my calculator. Menu 3, 1. So 2x plus x plus 2x plus x equals 144. With the pi button and get the pi. We're going to do comma x. We're going to solve for x first. So we get x equals 24 pi. So then we want to do 2 times 24 pi. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 2 times 24 pi. And we get 48 pi. The answer is B. Okay. Number 13. The solution of this given system of equations is xy. What is the value of x? So they want us to solve a solution. So calculator is really good at that. Menu 3, 7. Solve system, 2 equations. Cool. So y equals negative 2x. And then 3x plus y equals, 40. Enter. So x equals 40. We don't care about y. So x equals 40. So moving on to number 14. It says the frequency table summarizes the 57 data values in a data set. What is the maximum data value in the data set? So this question's not asking what is the most frequent number. They're asking which data value, so the left-hand column are data values, is the maximum, so is the largest. So just what number is the largest that shows up? 14. So the answer is 14. All right, number 15. One leg of a right triangle has a length of 43.2 millimeters. The hypotenuse of the triangle has a length of 196.8 millimeters. What is the length in the of the other leg of the triangle in millimeters? So we're just going to kind of draw a right triangle, just so that way we can label these things. So we know that one leg is 43.2. I'm just going to make this bottom side 43.2. And then the hypotenuse, so that's the long side, is 196.8. And then they want to know the other leg, so they just want to know what this side is. So if they're dealing with lengths of right triangles, and you know two of the sides especially, we can usually use Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Solve that. So remember, c is always your hypotenuse. So we're a squared, we'll just call the xa. The b will be the 43.2, so plus 43.2 squared. And that should equal 196.8 squared. So again, we just made another equation with one unknown. So handy dandy calculator. So x squared plus 43.2 squared equals 196.8 squared, comma, x. So 192. Write it down. X equals 192. And you see the calculator does give us negative 192 as well. Triangle lengths can't be negative. That's why only the positive one shows up. Okay. Moving on, number 16. A wire with a length of 106 inches is cut into two parts. One part has a length of x inches, and the other part has a length of y inches. The value of x is 6 more than 4 times the value of y. What is the value of x? So we have these two parts, x and y, and when they're combined back together, they should go back to our original wire. So when I combine them, and a lot of times combining means adding them, we should go back to being at 106. So I could actually say x plus y equals 106 inches. Then we can also see that the third sentence there says the value of x is, so is in math usually means equal, so x is 6 more than 4 times the value of y. So 4 times the value of y, and then it's 6 more than that, so plus 6. Very often the addition or subtraction is actually the first thing that's said, so 6 more, but we usually like to put that at the end of the equation. So that's why here I have 4y plus 6, even though the start of the equation says or the sentence says 6 more than y, we're going to add the 6 at the end. So we just created a system because we have 2 equations and 2 unknowns. So we can solve using our calculator again. So menu 3, 7, 2 equations. So x plus y equals 106. And then x equals 4y plus 6. And we'll hit enter. And they want the x value. So x equals 86. All right. I just realized it's cutting off some of my calculator. All right. So number 17. The function f is given, which table values represents y equals f of x minus 3. So what they're saying here is just y is going to be the function they gave us, and then subtract 3 at the end. So I'm even going to write that. I'm just going to basically substitute what f of x is. What is f of x? F of x is all of that. I'm just going to substitute that into the entirety of f of x right here. So really the equation we have is y equals x plus 6 times x plus 5 times x minus 4, and then just the minus 3 at the end. So they're asking which table of values represents this. So what I can do now is I can just pull up Desmos. I can type this equation in, and then we're just going to guess and check all the points from each of the tables. So we're just going to allow our calculator, or Desmos, to kind of visually guess and check this. And again, I may need to zoom in, zoom out for this question. I actually don't think I do based off the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a table now. And I'm just going to start filling in the table. The nice thing is all the x's don't change. It's only the y. So we're going to try -6, -6, -9, -5, -8, 4, 1. And I can already see that only it seems like 1 point passes through it, so it's not going to be A. So let's try B. So let's try -3. And I'm only having to change the y values here. This one's also going to be -3, and then this one's also going to be -3. So answer is B. And if we look, every single one passes through the graph, or the graph passed through every single point. So the answer is B. We can just guess and check in Desmos. All right, so let's move on to number 18. It says a landscaper uses a hose that puts 88x ounces of water in a bucket in 5y minutes. Which expression represents the number of ounces of water the hose puts in the bucket in 9y minutes at this rate? So they even say the word rate, which makes it a little bit easier for us because we want to recognize that we can make it a rate. Our rate that they gave us was that they are going to do 88x ounces of water per 5y minutes. And that rate shouldn't change. So that rate should equal any other rate that is the same scenario. So here they didn't say, hey, the landscaper gets the hose to go quick or anything. It's just we know that we're going to do it for a different amount of time. So that's going to create a different number of ounces, but the rate will be the same. So since we put ounces on the top, we want to leave ounces on the top. Now, the question says that they want to know the number of ounces. Well, we're using X and Y already, so I'm just use the letter A. So we're going to say A ounces per, and they said the time is going to be 9y minutes. So if you notice in my rate on both the left and right side of the equal sign, the ounces is on the top, the minutes is on the bottom. So I now want to know what this is for A, because they want to represent the number of ounces. So they want us to solve for A. So again, we can pull up our calculator because I have an equation, and I can solve for my one letter A. So menu 3, 1, control divide. So it's going to be 88x over 5y should equal A Didn't do control divide, so we'll do control divide a over 9y. And we're going to solve for a. So a equals 792x over 5. Answer's D. All right. Number 19. In the given systems of equations, h is a constant. If the system has no solution, what is the value of h? So remember, if they ever say h is a constant, so if they ever tell you of a constant and they tell you number of solutions, you're going to want to solve for your variables, usually x and y. If it's a system, we'll use solve system in our calculator. If it's not a system, we'll just use plain old solve. Here we have a system, so we are going to do menu 3, 7, enter, enter. And I'm just going to type them in. So 4x minus 9y equals 9y plus 5. And then our second equation is hy. Well, we have to remember we have to do h times y equals 2 plus 4x. I'll hit enter. So here I'm going to write down what's in the x solution only. So 5h plus 36 over 4 times h minus 18. And if we ever only have one constant, we'll only need to take the denominator for this and set it equal to 0. Because the denominator basically is representing the slope, and with no solution, they should have the same slope, aka their difference should be 0. You could also just remember, you're just going to always set the denominator equal to 0 with this sort of thing. So again, I basically just made an equation there in the bottom, so I'm now going to solve for h. Mini 3, 1, 4, parentheses, h minus 18 equals 0, comma h. So h equals 18. So the answer is D. Okay. Number 20. 13 is p% of 25. What is the value of p? So we're just going to use what words in math usually mean. So 13 is, so is in math usually means equals p%. So p over 100. And whenever they say percent of, I just always say that means times. So that's going to be times 25. And again, we just made another equation, so we can now solve for p. So menu 3, 1, 13 equals control divide p over 100 times 25, comma e. So p equals 52. Okay. Number 21, what is the smallest solution to the given equation? So still asking for a solution. They just want the smallest one. And by them saying smallest, I know I'm going to get more than one. But if we're trying to find a solution, use our calculator. So menu 3, 1. So we're doing a radical. So flip the radical and then parentheses x minus 2 squared. And we got to make sure we move outside of that radical. So I had to hit the right arrow. Equals another radical. 3x plus 34. And again, we got to move outside the radical before we put the comma x. So they went the smaller solution. So between -3 and 10, you're going to choose the -3. All right, number 22. Function f is defined by f of x equals x plus 6 times x plus 5 times x plus 1. Function g is defined by g of x is equal to f of x minus 1. The graph of y equals g of x in the xy plane has x-intercepts at a, comma 0, b, comma 0, and c, comma 0, where a, b, and c are distinct constants. What is the value of a plus b plus c? So obviously we probably should try to figure out a plus b, the values of a and b and c respectively, to be able to add them. So them telling us x-intercepts, we kind of know what y should be. We just need to figure out what x should be. Now, they don't want to know the x-intercepts of function f. They want to know the x-intercepts of function g. And based off this right here, we can see how g of x is related to f of x. G of x is just going to be f of x, but wherever we see x, we're going to replace it with x minus 1. So in all these x's over here, we're just going to replace that, all of them, with x minus 1. So g of x is just going to be parentheses x minus 1 plus 6, parentheses x minus 1 plus 5, parentheses x, right, a second parentheses, x minus 1 plus 1. So I've now just written the equation for g of x. So we're now just trying to find a, b, and c, which are the x-intercepts. So there are two really good ways to find the x-intercepts. One thing with x-intercept is that the y should be 0. The other way we can do it is if we have the equation, we could just go into Desmos and just graph it and see where it crosses the x-axis. And that's actually what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and use Desmos. And we're just going to type in that function exactly how I have it written. Parentheses x minus 1 plus 6, x minus 1 plus 5, x minus 1 plus 1. So graphed it, and you notice it puts the dots for us. So now I can just click them. So I now can see that it's at -5, -4, and 0. So we're just going to add these numbers. And I'm just going to go ahead and use Desmos. I'm just going to do -5 plus -4 plus 0. So we get -9. Again, you could have also made the g of x, that whole left side of my equation there, 0. Because remember, g of x and f of x are usually fancy ways of saying y. And then use the calculator to solve for x, and it would have told you x equals -5, x equals -4, and x equals 0. And then you just add those numbers. So different way to get to the same answer. All right, number 23. For x is greater than 0, the function f is defined as follows. F of x equals 201% of x, which the following could describe this function. So we're going to use, again, what we talked about with the percentage question earlier and kind of use what words mean to write equations. So f of x equals, well, that's nice because equals literally just means equal sign, 201% of x. So 201%, and then they said percent of, so that means times x. So a lot of us assume that if they say a percentage, that instantly will mean an exponential. Not always. Here, we don't have an exponent. And more specifically, we don't have x in the exponent. So this is definitely not an exponential. And then by us increasing by us multiplying by something greater than 1, and really just positive, that means that it's going to be increasing. So if they said percent increase or do the percentage multiple times, so if we are continually increasing by a percentage, then it would be increasing exponentially. But if you're only doing the percentage once, so here they didn't say we're going to increase by 200% every year or every day or every time x changes, we'll do it by 201%. They only said once, so that's going to be linear. If it's the percentage again and again and again and again, then that will be exponential. All right. Number 24. The function g is defined by g of x is equal to f of x plus 5. For what value of x does g of x reach its minimum? So if you're ever dealing with functions and they're asking what's the minimum or maximum, graphing in Desmos is really, really smart. This question, though, they wanted the minimum, the x, where g of x reaches its minimum. And they gave us f of x. But just like with the function question that we had with number 22, actually, right there, g of x is related to f of x. And this is saying that wherever we see x and f of x, we can replace it with x plus 5. So we're just going to take this x plus 5, and we are going to plug it into wherever we saw x for f of x. So our g of x is just going to be the same f of x, but we're going to, again, replace x with x plus 5. So we're going to do 4. And whenever you substitute something in, it's smart to put parentheses around it. So I'm going to put the parentheses here. And I actually did it with the question number 22 over here. I'll show you. I put parentheses around the x minus 1 here as well. I didn't point it out. Again, sometimes it won't matter, but for these particular questions, it would have potentially changed it drastically. So by doing it, it allows us to control what's being squared and all that sort of stuff. Well, they're asking for what value of x does g of x reach its minimum, so we can now go and graph in Desmos. So again, I'm just going to type in the equation exactly how I have it written. So g of x equals 4 parentheses x plus 5 squared plus 64 parentheses x plus 5 plus 262. So we're just going to zoom out until we see the minimum. So there's our minimum, but they wanted to know the value of x. So if they ever say x, they want the x. If they don't say x, they would want the y at the minimum. So here, since they said x, they want the x of the minimum, so it's negative 13. If they ever want to know the min or the max of a function, graphing it will be a very smart way to do that. All right, number 25. It says 1 gallon of stain will cover 170 square feet of a surface. A yard has a total fence area of W square feet. Which equation represents the total amount of stain S in gallons needed to stain the fence in this yard twice? So they said 1 gallon will cover 170 square feet of surface. So I kind of like thinking of that as a rate. It's 170 square feet per 1 gallon. So that'd be like me saying it takes me 1 hour to run 6 miles. So I could say I run 6 miles per 1 hour. And per, remember, means the divided by sign. Well, that rate should always be the same. So we're going to set it equal to another square footage over gallons. Well, we're going to stain a fence that has W square feet, but we want to stain the fence twice. So we're not going to do W square feet. We're going to do 2W square feet. Because, again, we're staining the fence twice. And they're going to say that that's going to take how many gallons? So we're going to put the number of gallons, S, in the bottom. Because now we have square feet over gallons on both sides. Well, again, we now just made an equation that has one unknown. So we can now, or has one letter we're trying to get by itself, I should say. So we can now solve for S. So I'm going to do menu 3, 1, control divide, 170 over 1 equals 2W. Oops, I didn't do control divide first. 2W over S. And we are solving for S because they want to know how many gallons. So we get W over 85. The answer is D. So this question, as long as we can set up the ratio or the rates and set them equal, it just turns into us using the calculator to solve for our letter. All right. 26. The table shows the results of a poll. A total of 803 voters selected at random were asked which candidate they would vote for in the upcoming election. According to the poll, if 6,424 people vote in the election, by how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win? So this question is not asking how many votes would Angel Cruz win, it's by how many votes. However, we could solve and figure out how many votes Angel Cruz will win, and then figure out how many votes Terry Smith will win, and then do the difference, because we want to know by how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win. You and I, when talking, would probably say, how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win by? That's how we'd probably say that. We just don't often like to end sentences and questions with prepositions, so that's why they put it at the front. So we know that out of 803 voters, 483 voted for Angel Cruz. And that ratio should be the same when we apply it to all the people. So that ratio should equal the number of people for Terry Crews. We'll call that X. Out of the total 6,424. So that ratio should be the same. So I can now solve for X and figure out how many votes did Angel Cruz win. So menu 3-1, control divide, 483 over 803 equals control divide X over 6424, comma X. So Angel Cruz won 3,864. And of course, this question, they put that number as an answer, knowing that we will make the mistake of thinking they just want to know how many votes Angel Cruz won. But we want to figure out how many votes did Angel Cruz win by. So we need to figure out how many votes Terry Smith won. Well, we know the total number, so we just do 6,424 and subtract Angel Cruz's number, 3,864. And again, this is just simple math. We don't really have to solve. So I'm just going to do regular math in the calculator, 3,864. So Terry Smith won 2,560. So to figure out how many votes Angel Cruz won by, we're just going to do 3,864 minus 2,560. And again, I'm just going to use regular, nothing fancy, no solve in the calculator. So 1,304. Okay. And then number 27, last question. It says right rectangular prism X is similar to right rectangular prism Y. The surface area of right rectangular prism X is 58 square centimeters, and the surface area of right rectangular prism Y is 1,450 centimeters squared. The volume of right rectangular prism Y is 1,250 cubic centimeters. What is the sum of the volumes in centimeters cubed of right rectangular prism X and right rectangular prism Y? So they want us to add the volumes of X and Y. Well, we know the volume of Y, but we don't know the volume of X. But we know that these shapes are similar. So very often if we're dealing with similar shapes, and they're talking about the surface area or the area or the volume, or even technically like perimeter, there is a ratio or a formula that we can very often use. This only is true with specific similar shapes. Hopefully we don't get cylinders. Cylinders are a bit annoying. Rectangular prisms are pretty nice. Cubes are nice. Squares are nice. Rectangles are nice. Circles are nice. It's just cylinders can sometimes be a little bit annoying. So the generic formula that we have is we could say that the area or surface area, but even just area of the bigger shape will equal the area of the smaller shape times, I'm going to put a little dot for times, whatever the factor is. So I'm going to say factor, and I'll describe what I mean by factor in a second, squared. The factor is what we're multiplying the sides by to get the other shape's sides. So factor is if I have a rectangle, and this is 2 and 4, and then I have a similar rectangle, and this would be 4 and 8, the factor is by 2, because I'm multiplying the smaller shape sides by 2 to get the larger shape sides. So that's what I mean by factor. Well, this is also true for volume. It's a little different. So the volume of the big shape is equal to the volume of the smaller shape times the factor cubed. And the way that I try to help you guys remember this is, notice how for volume, the volume here, they're cubed. And for the surface area or area, it's squared. So with the factor, it's squared for area. For volume, the factor is cubed. But the factor is the same as long as we're dealing with the same similar shapes. So the reason why this is helpful is because we know the surface area of the two shapes. So I could say that the surface area of the bigger shape, which is the 1450, should equal the surface area of the smaller shape, which is the 58, and that's x. And we should multiply that by the factor. I'm going to call the factor k squared. So we just made an equation that we can now solve for k. So I'm going to go into our calculator, and we're going to do menu 3, 1. I'm going to do 1450 equals 58 times k squared, comma k. And it tells us that k is equal to -5 or 5. Again, we're going to deal with positive numbers here. So we get k equals 5. Now, the reason why that is helpful is because we want to figure out the sum of the volumes. So we're going to use that factor that we just found to find the volume of rectangular prism X. So we know the volume of Y, which is the bigger shape, and we know that because the area of Y was bigger. So that means the volume of Y is probably going to be the bigger of the two. So we're going to say 1250 equals the volume of prism X, which I'm just going to call X because it's X volume, times the factor squared, so or factor cubed, so it's going to be times, I'll put K so that way we can see it, cubed. But what is K? K is 5. So I can actually think of this equation as 1250 equals X times 5 cubed. And when we type that into the calculator, let's put the 5 in the front. So we are just going to do, we have another equation, so we are going to solve. So menu 3, 1. And we're going to do 1250 equals 5 cubed X, comma, X. So we get X equals 10. So that's the volume of rectangular prism X. So what do they want us to do with that? They want to know the sum of the volume. So we're going to do 1250 plus 10. And I'm not even going to use the calculator for this one. I'm just going to say 1260. So this question is quite tough. But knowing these two ratios right here, these two equations, can be helpful. You can only do those if you know the shapes are similar. There are two shapes that they may not tell you they're similar. Cubes. Every cube is similar to every other cube. Same thing with squares. Every square is similar to every other square. Also, spheres and circles. All of those 4 things are always similar to the same type of thing. Other shapes, they will have to tell you that they are similar. And that's why in this question, they did tell us that these rectangular prisms are similar, and that's why we could use this equations, or both these equations. Again, you do not have to use Desmos or the calculator as much as I did. There are multiple ways to do many of these questions. This is just, in my opinion, very good ways to use it. You could also do a lot more stuff by hand. It's just whatever you feel comfortable with. If you want to utilize the calculator as much as I showed you that you could, I highly recommend it because the calculator won't make mistakes as long as we don't type things in incorrectly. But yeah, continue to review these, and hopefully you'll feel more prepared for the test.